December 16th, 1982. This is Joe Todd interview with Mary Magdaline Wyatt. Mrs. Wyatt, where were you born?
Mount Airy, North Carolina.
Mount Airy?
Mount Airy, North Carolina.
Now, I know it's impolite, but when were you born?
Oh, now this is a killer. April the 1st, 1900.
1900. When'd you come to Oklahoma?
In 1902.
So you don't have any memories of North Carolina?
So what?
You don't have any memories of North Carolina then, do you?
I was a baby.
Yeah. Why'd your father come to Oklahoma?
Oh, he got that spirit that you've heard them say, "Go west, young man, go west." Mm-hmm. So we had 7 brothers, 5 sisters. Of course, my older sister was married before I was born, and so he got that going spirit to come west, and he moved here to El Reno. He and my brother came together. My brother Andrew, and next to my oldest brother, and they came here doing the, what do you call it then?
Well, with the land rush or the lottery?
Yeah, it's when you fight on planes. Yeah.
What was your father's name?
Green Gunter.
Green?
Gunter. Gunter.
And he was from North Carolina?
He was from North Carolina.
Who was your mother?
He was born in West Virginia, though.
Who was your mother?
My mother?
Yeah.
My mother was Mary Todd. Born in Mount Airy, North Carolina.
And did she come with your father?
No, she's come 2 years after he did.
Okay. What's your first memory of El Reno?
Well, the most important thing that I have noticed, a memory, was that my daddy I used to be up on the wagon beside him on the seat, and he would be going to town. He was trying to teach me how to say Oklahoma, and I couldn't repeat it. I said Oklahoma. That's one of my greatest memories.
What kind of house you lived in as a child?
It was our first home was a log cabin, 1-story log cabin.
How many rooms? How many rooms?
I'd say 3 rooms. And then he built, as we grew, he built a frame on top of that with a 2-bedroom upstairs where the boys slept, made the bedroom, And that was made out of frame, and the bottom part was log.
Was this house in El Reno?
Huh?
Was this house in El Reno?
No, 7.5 miles south of Hinton.
South of Hinton.
Hinton, Oklahoma. That's where he filed on his first claim, 3 miles from Lookeba, Oklahoma.
How big was his claim? 160 acres?
His claim that he filed on was 80 acres. And as we were growing up, he bought 160.
What'd your father do?
Just a straight-out farmer.
Farmer. What did he raise?
Out there in Caddo County, it was you could raise anything. Water ran through the 160-acre farm, and we raised all kind of garden, corn, cattle corn, and all kind of vegetables, hogs and chickens and chickens.
Raised cotton?
Oh, and cotton. That was the main.
You ever chop cotton?
Oh, did I chop cotton? I hated it.
How do you chop cotton?
Well, you have to have a really sharp hoe, and you that cotton is spaced, and you have to cut that crabgrass and the weeds out from around. Sometimes you might cut down a stalk or two, but oh yes, when the cotton grew up straight in the height, you had to thin it, and that hoe is just the width of the hoe is the way you thin the cotton. You just cut that out of there.
Yeah. How wide was the hoe? What?
Oh, say about. Cotton stalks about that wide. That'd be about 6.
Yeah, about 6 inches.
About 6 inches.
Yeah.
And
How much cotton could you pick in a day?
Well, the largest amount I ever picked was, say, 150 pounds. But when they went to pulling cotton, I pulled, after I was married, I pulled 300 pounds.
And what's pulling cotton?
Pulling. You get the whole, when you pick it, you just pick the cotton out of
the cotton
bowl.
balls. Yeah.
But when you pull it, you just get the bowl and all put in your sack. There's a little dirt on the ground, you pick that up and put, it weighs more. We didn't do that only when we were pulling for someone else,
Did you have a machine that planted the cotton seeds?
Yeah, my daddy had. He had all kinds of machinery.
How about
cultivators.
Yeah, how to plow
And the machine that we had you wouldn't, let me see before I don't. Well, there's a space around shaped like a bucket on top of the machine, and you put your cotton seed in the top of that. It came out down through the bottom of this cotton plant or whatever it was, and it spaced it. It was made to space the seeds, and it as they run the cotton planter, anyway, why those seeds would drop out, when they were all out of that hopper, where it was called, and then you put in some more until they got all the cotton planted.
How many acres did you plant?
Oh boy, it's a half a quarter of a mile long.
How long was the field?
The rows, I won't forget the rows were 40 miles long. And anyway, they would say 5 to 10 acres, I guess. I don't know. Let me see. On the 80. Well, you just...
What was the price of cotton back then? What was the price of cotton back then?
Now the best I can remember was 2 cents a pound. $2 is $2 when you'd pick. You would get 2.5 a hundred. $2 to 2.5 a hundred for every 100 pounds you pick. You can guess from that.
What year was this?
Well, I can take it back as far as 1924. I'll give you that number. My husband and I lived, we had this first child, and we lived west of Benga, Oklahoma, on Indian lease, and we raised so much cotton that he had to hire help, and we got that was 1924 was the year that the price kind of fell out of cotton. We were getting $200 a bale, and the price went down. And we just farmers just kind of went in the hole that year. But they were, up to that time, you was getting $200 a bale.
That was in 24?
Yeah, 24. Yeah,
where'd you go to school?
Out in a little schoolhouse on my daddy's farm, north of Lokiba, Oklahoma, and it's where I went to school up to the 8th grade. And then I went to Watonga High School, and then from there to Langston University. I jumped up and married the second year.
Who was your favorite teacher?
My favorite teacher was Mrs. Alice Virginia Watkins from Kansas City, Missouri. My parents roomed and boarded teachers. That's the reason I learned so much about it. She made me learn how to crochet.
You still crochet?
Oh, yes. Still.
What was your favorite subject?
Sorry?
What was your favorite subject in school?
I'm not going to say math. I think English. I'll take that back if I can. Psychology. When I got in high school, Dobbs psychology. I love psychology. Yeah,
What kind of games did you play as a child?
All kind of games. At home, I learned to play. You mean these games around in the home or just outside?
Both.
Well, dominoes and checkers, and in the house when it was cold, and then I like to play baseball. And when I went to high school, I loved to play volleyball. I don't know why I never took to tennis, but I loved to play volleyball. And I never played basketball, but I played volleyball, and baseball, softball, and all like that. And when I moved to Kansas at 210, my husband died. Well, we had a softball team, and we married late girls played every afternoon after we come from work.
Were these
I lived 18 and a half years in,
Were these all black schools you attended?
Yes.
Okay. What was Langston like when you first went there? Or what year did you go to Langston?
1923 was the last year.
Who was head of Langston University when you went there?
Young was after me. Professor Backstrom from Enid, Oklahoma.
Backstrom
from Enid, Oklahoma.
What was he like?
Oh, he's kind of a masterful teacher, all right. He was kind of bossy.
What did he
He
teach?
was a good.
What did he teach?
In those days, you taught. I taught 3 years myself before I married, but 2 years after I married. But you had to teach from what's called kindergarten now. When you just learn your ABCs on up to 8th grade. You had to master all of that all the way up.
Did you live at Langston? You went there?
No. I went there and boarded. Parents paid our way.
Where'd you board? Where'd you board?
I didn't stay in the dormitory. I stayed out in Linda Landerson and girlfriend and I grew up together and went to school, went to grammar school together, and then we went to high school together in Watonga. And we roomed at what's called Canterbury. A name just came to me. Canterbury. Some people that boarded and roomed girls that come there to go to school.
Where is Canterbury? Well, what is Canterbury? Is it a...
That was their name. Canterbury, Mr. and Miss Canterbury.
Oh, that was their names. Okay. Where'd they live?
In Langston.
In Langston.
Right there, off the campus,
And the dormitories on campus, were they
The
have...
dormitories on campus. But
Okay.
we didn't stay in the dormitory. We roomed out.
How come?
And walked out. I don't know why. I guess because my mother thought it was better for me to stay in a home, and they were just like they just kind of adopted us as Mr. and Miss Canterbury, And people were stricter with girls in those days than they are now. And I think my mother wanted us to.
Yeah.
And our mothers,
How many students were at Langston at that time?
Oh, Lord. That's a hard one. I'm telling you the truth, I have.
I thought someone knocked on my door.
Let me see, if I could just estimate. I have no idea.
Yeah, oh, that's okay. When did you meet your husband? What was his name?
Joseph. Oh, well, now wait a minute. Now I call my husband my kid, daddy that died in Eldred County. I was Joseph Neal. I married this. And I've got two sons. And he died in Eldred, Kansas, in 1939.
Then you married Mr. Wyatt?
Todd Wyatt, Oklahoma City. I knew him when we were school kids. I wouldn't have married him.
When did you marry
I should put that on.
When did you marry Mr. Neal?
In 1923, after I came back from Langston, my mother wanted me to go ahead and finish, get my degree. I had other things in my mind. Married Joseph B. Neal.
And when did you move to Kansas?
I moved to Kansas from Oklahoma City in 1931.
Okay, you're in Oklahoma City in 31 then.
Yeah, I lived in Oklahoma City.
What did Mr. Neal do?
Oh, he was, started out, at the time he was 16 years old, he was working for Lee Huckins Hotel. Went from bellhop to night clerk. He was just a hotel man.
When did he start working at the Huckins?
Well, he started working when he was 16. His dad lived out by, Reverend Neal lived out by Lakiba, Oklahoma. Of course, he left home, when he was young. And so he was 15, he went to Oklahoma City and got this job to Lee Huckins Hotel, and he just stayed with it until, we didn't leave there until, let me see, when did we go to? That's where that come from, Bridgeport. I don't know who told you that, but he came out, the way I met him, well, I'd known him our young life, but he had been married before, and so he came from Oklahoma City out and took a notion he wanted to go to farm, wanted to farm, and so he and I started going together. And we married, and I was teaching when we married in 1923. And so that's when I was telling you about we lived on an Indian lease and selling cotton for $200 a bale, And price fell out of cotton. He took a notion to go back to Oklahoma City. So I met him out there at Lakiba, Oklahoma. That's where his parents lived.
Where'd you teach?
Right in the neighborhood where I grew up. Mm-hmm. In the big old white schoolhouse.
What'd you teach?
I went just from kindergarten up to the 8th grade. And then when I got into the 9th grade, I had to go to Watonga.
Any of your students become famous?
Well, no, not that I remember. You might be pretty smart, but I don't know. You know what? I even taught some of my nieces and nephews. I went to school with them, and then they went to school to me. Chester, he's the oldest one. He lives in Omaha, Nebraska. And all he's ever done, the biggest thing he's ever done is run a rooming house. He owns his own big 2-story building there. And then his sister, Mamie Bennett, she lives in Oklahoma City. Her kids, she has 2 daughters have been pretty famous. One of them was in a beauty contest. And then the other girl, Vida, she played in the high school theater there. I can't remember the street, but I was over there too. You remember the play Raisins in the Sun? She's done more than any of them. Things, and she was in that. It was in the news. She really played that part, mother in the Raisins in the Sun.
What did you do in the Depression in Oklahoma City, 30 and 31?
I was just, let me see, I worked part-time, just part-time at the hotel there. And, because my husband, he happened to be a hotel man. He went to the, what you call the Okie Hotel there. And he worked there, and we didn't have to get on there. But I saw every bit of it. I mean, I witnessed every bit of it right there in town, but we managed to live through it,
They have the big soup lines in Oklahoma City? They have the big soup lines in Oklahoma City?
Oh, they had it. I have witnessed it. My children were small. All up and down the railroad. I've seen people sleeping in the railroad station. Nowhere to sleep. And I've seen them going all up and down the railroad track there and standing in line to receive that milk and soup. I've seen all of that happen in Oklahoma City in 1930. Wow.
Any big dust storms hit Oklahoma City?
Mm-hmm.
Any big dust storms hit Oklahoma City?
Oh, yes.
What were they like?
Oh, you couldn't see for, I don't know, about the distance. For blocks you couldn't see you for nothing but the dust, and even got in your nose. You'd almost breathe it. It was terrible.
How'd you keep it out of your house?
Just the very best you could. Some of it would get in anyway,
How'd you keep it out?
Get on. Well, the only thing we could do is to keep our curtains, down as much as possible, and keep the doors closed as much as you can, and screen everything. I don't know any really particular thing we did do except that, because you'd almost have to brush it off of your beds, and, if somebody would get in the house no matter what. Oh, boy.
Then you moved to Kansas. What did you do in El Dorado, Kansas?
Hotel work. When I first got there, I did domestic work, and that I mostly did hotel and cafe work was called this. Well, this cafe work was a really barbecue place. I worked at for years when my boys were growing up. See, my husband died there, and he died. Well, I just stayed with hotel work, and I kind of like public work this way. And at that time, you could get more. That's the only way you could even draw any Social Security. I was working at the Royal Hotel there when they first passed the law that you could receive Social Security in domestic work in the homes. I was working there in 1937, something like that. Between 1937 and 39. When they passed the law that you could. But I like public work like that, and so that's why I could make more money working at hotels, cafes. That's what I did.
Then you moved back to Oklahoma when?
1949. After my husband died in cancer.
What did you do during World War II?
Wait a minute.
That was in 41 through 45.
I was living in Kansas at that time.
You do any work for the war effort?
Huh?
You do any work for the war effort?
I certainly did. I had forgotten that I got a job working at the sewing center in the basement of the Methodist Church. We sewed there, and then we canned for the Red Cross, My brother drove a truck for the Red Cross. And that helped us to live a better life,
What'd you sew?
Oh, we make shirts,
You did this for the Red Cross and the soldiers?
Yeah, for the course. And I learned how to cut out 4 shirts at the same time. Really, and then they would give we girls that worked there. They'd give us enough material to make shirts for our kids by working there. They'd give us cloth material free.
That worked out pretty good then.
It was really good. Sure.
And when did you marry Mr. Wyatt?
1958.
1958. How come you came back to Oklahoma in 49?
My son had married and he was expecting his first daughter. You know what was for his first child. And I'd moved from El Dorado to Wichita and just settled there. And I got a letter from him coming to help him out. The baby was going to be born and they needed us. And I said, oh, yes. I said, I'll be glad to do that for you. So I packed up and came on back.
So where did he live?
510 West Penn in El Reno.
In El Reno. Mm-hmm. That's why he came back to El Reno.
That's why I come back to El Reno.
You met Mr. Wyatt here?
Say what?
You met Mr. Wyatt in El Reno?
Oh, I met him. Well, yes, he found me. I didn't know where he was. I hadn't seen him in 30 years. You know. We went together before I ever married Neil. And anyway, he found out I was over here in El Reno and started coming over here. And about 2 months before I decided I would get married to him. I did.
What kind of work did you do?
Huh?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, he was a hotel man. He was maintenance and porter at the Wilmot Hotel. 1, 2, 3, and 5 in the Ellis shop under Lawrence Humboldt. They don't own. They sold out 2 of those hotels now, but they still. Mrs. Humboldt lives in Nichols Hill. At that time, she lived on Drury Lane, but she lives in another part of Nichols Hill now. Mm-hmm. They're very wealthy people.
Yeah. What did you do in El Reno?
Who?
What did you do in El Reno?
Me?
From the time you moved down with your son until you got married.
Oh, until I got married to Oklahoma. See, I moved from, let me see, I moved from where I stayed with my son until I got the job at Mrs. Job here. About 3 weeks after the baby was born, I went to work upstairs here, maid at the Southern Hotel.
This was the Southern Hotel?
This hotel.
It's now the Senior Citizen Center.
Nice senior citizen. I mean, there's some memories. We used to come in. That's where we go in and get the keys and everything back in there. Mm-hmm. I worked here. This is the first steady job I got here. $12 a week. And my take-home pay was $11.88 because they took out $1, 25. I mean, it was $1.12 for Social Security. Mm-hmm. This place really has memories to me, and it's a greater. I have great respect for it now because the museum is right over there. I got 2 dresses I'm gonna take antique. I'm gonna take.
You know anyone that worked in the canteen?
Huh?
You know anyone that worked in the canteen? In World War I, the Red Cross canteen?
No, I do not.
Did you ever hear about the big race riot in Tulsa, 1921?
Oh, I have a friend that lived there, and she lost everything, and she lost her sewing machine and some more material there. She was really my brother's sister-in-law, Maud Ector. She lives in Guthrie now. I think if she's still living. I haven't heard.
What'd she tell you about that big riot? What happened over there?
Oh, she was much afraid, frightened half to death. That's one thing about it. And then what she worried about was the property that she lost.
What happened to it?
Fire in the home where she stayed. Yes. Really.
There was a fire in the home where she stayed, your friend?
Yes, she and her girlfriend were living together. In that, during the riot, I don't know how they did why they set some of the homes on fire.
Who is rioting? What? Blacks or whites or both?
Yes, she knew that way it was.
So both sides were going at it?
Always liked sit up after that. Say what?
Both sides were going at it then?
Yes. That's what Maud said.
Did she say what started that?
No, I didn't learn what started.
How long did that last?
Oh, not maybe 2 or 3 days, something like that. Is all I remember.
How many people were killed in that thing? Did she say?
Well, I don't know of any. Really, I don't. I don't remember of any that died of that.
Yeah. What's your friend's name?
Maud Ecton. E-C-T-O-N. She used to live in Guthrie. I don't know where she is now.
You know your grandparents?
Very unfortunately, no. And I grew up without a grandparent. I heard of it, but and the only one I didn't even get to grow up around him. My mother had a brother named James Dodd. See, that was her name. And he had a daughter named Mary Dodd. But when my mother died in Oklahoma, we couldn't find them. Any trace of it. I never had the pleasure of growing up around grandfather, grandmother, or my aunt Elsa.
Have you heard your parents talk about any of their ancestors that were slaves?
Well, my mother and dad, they were very fortunate. That's where my daddy got his name, from the people that his parents belonged to. But, and then my mother, she grew up right with the family that owned them. And that's where Daddy got his name from, Gunter, Unter. I've heard him tell that when I was a kid.
Yeah. Now, did the Gunters live in North Carolina?
North Carolina.
North Carolina. Did your father ever tell you any stories about his father being a slave or anything?
No, he never talked about it.
He never talked about it.
The most we ever heard anyone talk about was an old man in El Dorado, Kansas, where my boys grew up. They used to sit around his knees, Mr. Waller, W-L-L-E, Waller. He was 100 years old. He said he knew he was 100 years old. And he would just sit around and tell those kids all the stories about it. My daddy just never talked about it. He was a Yankee. He was a Yankee soldier.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he really was. And he put his age up to 18 and joined. And he was in there in 3 years. War was over. Went in and anyway, it was over in about 1965, but he had just been in long enough to maintain the pension. He wasn't in no battle.
So he was in the Civil War then, huh? But he wasn't in any battles or
no battle. He joined up, but there was no battle. The war was pretty soon over, but he got a pension, and lived on it till. And then when my mother died in 1930, she drew where he left off. Pretty smart trick.
When was your father born? What year? Do you know?
Oh, not that. Let me see now. I'll tell you. He was, my daddy lived here. He had a pretty rough time around here in Caddo County. When he dropped a gun, they had to carry guns,
yeah,
to keep from being in. So my brother Andrew did the cooking, and my daddy would pick up the chips, brush around. He was wearing this gun, being attacked, and the gun dropped out of his pocket, and the doctor and Anna doctor said it just jarred his heart just a little to one side, and from that he suffered from neuralgia at the heart. And of course he lived, paid for that 160 acres, and everything was free before he ever got sick, and died. He died in 1919 when both of my brothers were in service. The other Edgar was in Hoboken Island, New York. They ready to ship him overseas. And Jesse, he didn't get no further than Fort Belvoir, Virginia, training.
Then the war was over.
Yeah.
Do you remember World War One?
I barely remember. Wait a minute. Jesse was in World War One. That was World War One. Jesse and Edgar, Gunner, my brothers.
Yeah.
They were in World War One. Both of them been married. Jesse had just been married a month when he had to go. They drafted them. And Edgar wanted to come home when my daddy died in 1919, and they wouldn't let him, and because they're getting him ready to go overseas. And so he said he tried everything in the world to make him mad at him. Tried to make him put him in the guardhouse, and they knew what was wrong with him. He's upset because he couldn't get a furlough to come home. And so they just put up with anything he did, let him cuss. I heard him tell that. That was World War One. It sure was.
How many kids do you have?
Jesse.
No, you.
Oh, two boys.
How many grandkids?
I've got two granddaughters. Both the boys had nothing but a girl apiece. I got two granddaughters and 6 great-grandchildren.
Is that you?
Maybe 6. I said 6. Well, go ahead. I have 4 in, yes, that's right. 4 in Riverside, California. That's J.B. Neal, my son. He lives here. That's his grandchildren. And then I got 2 live here in town, my youngest boy's grandchildren. That's 6 great-grandchildren.
Yeah. What's your fondest childhood memory?
I think it's my home life where I grew up. I grew up on the farm, and I enjoyed it, a bit of it. And, my dad started me to riding horses at the time I was big enough to stick up on a horse. He called me a little Indian, That old middle.
Can you tell me as a child, what your average day was like? What kind of chores you had to do, what time to get up?
Oh, yes. Now, my parents would liable to get up at 4 o'clock, but I didn't have to get up that early because maybe it says 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then I would...
Yeah. So what time would you get up in the morning? What time do you get up in the morning?
They'd call me about 6 o'clock. I'd get up,
What was the first thing you did?
Wash my face. I had hair, then my mother would take care of my hair. But anyway, we'd have breakfast, and I had to learn to wash dishes early. At that age, about 11 years old, I had to wash the dishes. And if I went to school, I'd go to school, and then come home, and the first thing in the evening, I'd have to go get up the eggs, go to and then go up to the turkey nest up on the hill and get the turkey eggs and bring them in, and then my chore was to help. My sister did the cooking, and I'd have to wash dishes, And then later on, I learned to make beds, things like that.
What about washing clothes?
Oh, my mother and sister did that.
How'd they wash the clothes?
Oh boy! First there was an old wood. Big pot, almost big around as this. She'd put clothes in the big old wash, what we called it. And she would make her own soap. She would boil her white, sheets and stuff in the pillowcases in this big pot. And she made us rinse them. She taught us to rinse them 3 times until the water was clear. And then from that up, we were getting up in life when my dad bought one of these push washing machines.
With the handle on top.
The handle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the old ringer in the washing machine.
How often did you do laundry?
Well, at least twice a week, because there's a big family of us.
Yeah. How many in the family?
About 14.
14. Okay.
Wait a minute. Wait, I'll take that back. My oldest. They wanted all at home. My oldest brother, 2 oldest brothers, one came. Wait a minute. I don't want you to hear that.
Hear what?
There's about 4 brothers and 2 sisters. Say it's about 7 of us before we got the washing machine.
How'd your mother make soap?
Daddy would take a barrel and cut the bottom out of an old wooden barrel, cut the bottom out down here, and then pour ashes in the top there. And then we burn wood, the wood stove, and you'd pour water in on top of those ashes, and then what's called a wood lye ran out. And she'd take that, and then she'd buy these Lewis lye can, and put that scraps of meat or old lard, put it in there. And they just heat all that stuff up. And then she put in this big wash pot out in the yard on about 4 bricks set up on there, and then put fire on there and cook it. You have a paddle to stir it with, and just let it stir and cook until with that fat, and this lye. Stir it until the string looked like honey. And when it gets to looking like honey, then it's ready to just skim the top off and the foam come on. And then when this went to stringing like honey, it's ready to take off the stove. And she put it in the container, maybe a wooden box, let it set. And when it got hard enough, then she cut it in blocks.
Did you help your father butcher?
Huh?
Did you help your father butcher?
No, I was scared. I hated to see him even kill a hog and knock it in the head, he'd shoot cattle. When he'd go to kill the hog, I'd put my hands up to my ears, keep me in the gun, and go on.
What about the chickens?
I hated to learn. They would either chop the chicken's head off with an axe, or else wring its neck. I'd get the chicken. Yeah, I've seen them just wring the neck.
You learned how to wring the neck?
Yes, I hated to even try. But sometimes you couldn't, according to how big you couldn't, his body wouldn't break. Oh, Lord. Childhood, I don't remember anything. It is because my parents raised everything on the farm. They need to eat. All they had to do when I was growing up was to go. They raised their own chickens, their own meat, beef or pork, and then they'd kill about 7, 8 hogs. And even my mother'd even make the sausages and put them in the boat flour by 50-pound bag once a week, and she'd take that empty bag and she'd cut up the fat part of it. So my dad would cut the meat up in the smokehouse, and I used to pick up chips to smoke that meat, Anyway, she would put her the fat off the sides of the hog. Daddy cut all that fat up, and she'd put in that iron pot and cook it down, make the lard, and then she would pour it in this strain the lard in from the cracklings into a container, and she take that greasy sack and make that sausage up, sage and stuff in it. It smells so good, and she stuff that in this bag and hang it up in the smokehouse. Smoke the whole thing together. And already they have loaded up the garden. You're just talking about what we raised besides the farm. On the farm, where raised to feed the grain and stuff like that. Why, they had a truck garden. And they'd bring cabbage heads here to El Reno as big as my head, cabbage, sweet potatoes, and tomatoes and cucumber and all that stuff. They'd get up early in the morning before about 4 o'clock and load this old sheeted wagon up, and they'd drive over here and sell it out on the streets. But they passed a law, you can't do that now. But they did that when I'd be scared when Dad get up and leave home, because I was scared when he wasn't home. I thought my daddy I didn't think the devil could get me if my daddy was around. So I'd be sure all the doors was locked when he...
What about the Indians?
We had good neighbors, like you and you young people are. I'd heard so many stories about it. I used to go by there's a bunch of Indians named Adams that lived down below us, between our house and Lokiba, Oklahoma, and we had to go down near there to spring to get water. And they would, when I was little, I was afraid of them just because of the stories I'd heard about. But we had some good Indian neighbors. Yeah. Just like all kids, we had heard those stories about them.
Mm-hmm. What kind of Indians were they?
These were mostly, I imagine Adams and them were Comanches. Well, there was women around Anadarko. There's Chickasaw, Comanche, and Cherokee.
They're Cherokees
They're
down there
all
too?
around Anadarko right now. They have the loveliest Indian. Say what?
The Cherokees down there too?
Yes, they're mixed. There's different tribes. Comanches. It's a Caddo's name. Most of the towns out in the southern part of Oklahoma is named from Indians. No, we learned that though in school.
Well, anything you want to tell your kids or grandkids?
Oh boy. I'll let you know.
Do you have any advice for the young people today?
Huh?
Do you have any advice for the young people today?
Oh, yes. Really, I think they should look for try to attain the highest places in life, and above all, get their education, the right kind of education, and not be influenced by wrong people, and just, first of all, I imagine, be a Christian, and then try to always look for the highest heights in life, and above all, just get wisdom and understanding. Take all the good advice that they can get and be sure and not be influenced by the bad.
Okay, I think we have a good interview. Anything else you want to tell me? About your childhood?
Well, let's see.
Oh, how'd your father come to Oklahoma?
He left North Carolina in a sheeted wagon, but I don't know how far. They came and see right now. My brother Joe brought us out here. Brought us to Oklahoma. I remember when we came through Cincinnati, we were on the train. I don't know what was the. He sold it. I'll tell you this: we grew up on the farm. We sold his farm in North Carolina and came to Oklahoma and bought. As I told you, filed on 80 acres, bought the 160 while we were growing up, kids, and. I think that I remember when we came. I'm sure Andrew and my brother and my daddy must have come on the same way that we came, because I remember they were talking about. I heard my brother and them talking about seeing the lights across the river as we came through Cincinnati, Ohio. Now by that I know we were on the train. Part of the way.
But you started out in a wagon.
Started out in a covered wagon. Yes, and we used the covered wagons here in Oklahoma. Because he traveled from our farm out here from Hinton, south of Hinton, and came to El Reno in the covered wagon one time. The whole
Did you learn how to drive it?
Say what?
You learned how to drive the wagon?
Oh, I learned how to drive a wagon. I learned how to bridle a horse. Harness it. I learned how to bridle it and saddle it and ride it. And I learned how to drive. When my daddy was feeling bad and couldn't drive my mother to Hinton to pick up the groceries, I could drive it. And I could harness that team and hook it to the wagon. I was a kid. I was a tomboy. I shouldn't say, but I was.
What kind of mischief you get into?
Say what?
What kind of mischief you get into?
Well, I never could climb a tree, but there wasn't a building, a granary, a barn around the place that my dad had that I didn't climb up on. And above all, I love to ride horses. Yeah, I didn't miss a thing. So, let's see. I don't know of anything. I enjoyed more than riding horses. My daddy used to go down to the farm from the age down to the farm across the street. Well, I used to love to swing up in the back of the wagon with my feet hanging down and ride down the road. Maybe ride a quarter of a mile just to follow my dad and then walk back to the house.
Well, what else you want to tell me?
That's about the worst I have But I had a good life, really. Really, I don't have any. Most of the trouble that I've ever had is since I've been grown. I had a happy child life. Really did. Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you.